Hi everybody, it's Lee Caraher, and this is Everything Speaks, where we talk about how everything you do and say speaks for you if you wanted to or not. Today we're going to revisit one of my favorite topics, word choice. Words matter. Of course, in Everything Speaks, the words you choose are meant to convey what you want to convey. And sometimes you want to, maybe you're conveying something you don't want to convey. And how you choose words in this hyper-connected world, can I just ask you all just to take a breath before you publish those words? Take a breath before you publish that ad campaign and get someone else's opinion. This past week, I've spent no less than 5 hours with clients who had to walk things back because they chose the wrong words. They didn't take the time to refer to the message document, or they didn't take the time to say, hey, given what's going on in the world, does this ring true? Context matters. Words that you choose matter in the context of the day. And frankly, a lot of crisis PR firms get a lot of money because people are just choosing the wrong words at the wrong time. That one poorly chosen phrase can be very, very expensive in time, in effort, in morale, in actual bottom line. So let's talk about a few of these and then what we can learn from them. So can a single word or a single hashtag create a PR crisis? Well, yes, it can. We have lots of examples of this. I've written them all out, so I'm going to have to look down here, but just a few that come to mind. One is, how about Nike's Never Again campaign? It was about that during the London Marathon, they had a campaign that used that phrase, never again, to really convey that their purpose was to convey a message about personal achievement, how you overcome past failures, breaking limits, finishing what you couldn't do before. And it sounds really powerful, but it's contextual. Never again is internationally associated with the Holocaust. Never let the Holocaust, never let genocide happen again. And it's inscribed in the sign at Auschwitz. And it's part of anti-genocide advocacy across the globe. So when that phrase showed up in the Nike ad, completely divorced from the context of the marathon, and particularly in Europe, right? People were outraged. And they were right to be outraged. They were right to be outraged. And, in this world of cancel culture, which is actually not new. Cancel, it's just named. They got a lot of people who are like, I'm not buying Nike again because of this. I think they've recovered from that, but it took a lot of time, right? Their intent was athletic inspiration, but the cultural weight of those words, you cannot transcend that cultural weight. You can't do it, right? How about another one? Actually, this came to me the other day. Apparel company that we're working with, but the H&M Coolest Monkey in the Jungle. This is a t-shirt, right? It was a black child. The ad was a black child in a hoodie with a slogan that said, coolest monkey in the jungle. Are you freaking kidding me? Was it ignorance? Was it oversight? It didn't really matter. That is too egregious to not be purposeful. That's what the overwhelming sentiment was. Racial implications were immediately clear to the wide-ranging public, customer or not, and it is so obvious to consumer brands, that it is really unfathomable that somebody at H&M didn't see it and go, yeah, that's probably not a good idea. Even if they agreed with the idea, even if they were of that bent, they should have known better. And that word should, yeah, that applies here. That backlash was swift and global. Celebrities pulled out from the collaboration. Social media exploded. They apologized, but the damage was done, and they've spent a lot of time trying to recover from that. That Dolce & Gabbana eating with chopsticks, which was in China, they, before a fashion show, they released that promotional video featuring a Chinese model trying to eat Italian food with chopsticks. And it was so patronizing. Just used totally tired stereotypes. And Chinese celebrities boycotted the show, which was the whole point, was to be big in China. And they totally boycotted that show. Retailers dropped the brand. And D&G lost that major market basically overnight because of the words that they chose. Another one in the running shoe space, Reebok did the Run Easy campaign, which was meant to invite more people into the sport. Less pressure, more joy. Sounds, great. Come on in, you can be a runner. But that was at the same time that they were trying to break into elite sports. They were trying to do things for NFL, NBA, pro athletes across the globe. And we just told them to run easy. That's not athletic way of doing things, right? Athletes don't want easy. Athletes succeed because they transcend and they keep pushing past their pain, pushing past their performance to get better, 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 better. And that campaign clashed with the audience and it flopped hard. And they had to reboot and spend more money, going back. And something I said before is, when you're in the negative, so Run Easy goes to takes the brand into the negative. You don't get to positive without going through zero. You can't just go from here to here without going through zero. Zero, you have to build from. Sometimes just getting to zero is the win. But it's so competitive, you got to get to positive, right? So anytime you have to rebound from your own mistake, you totally self-owned yourself there. Unintentional goal, right? It's an own goal. What a waste, right? And it really keeps happening for the same freaking reason. It's a failure to check cultural reference, to make sure that your messaging resonates with your audience and doesn't create for positive good, right? That the world is diverse. In the United States, we're increasingly diverse with an increasing number of languages. And so I'm not sure, safe. I don't like safe as let's be safe. And you can be edgy without being stupid, right? You don't have to. And we're not just in our own bubble. We just can't work in our own bubble, and words matter in so many different ways. So what should you do instead? The first question is, does this align with our values? So if you have a nice set of values on the wall, inclusion, equity, opportunity, and cool as monkey in the jungle, doesn't match. And then the next question is, could this be misunderstood by someone not in this room? We all need to ask these questions. Could this be misunderstood by someone who's not sitting around this table? That is why the more diverse input we have, the better decisions we make. That is why when you're in a decision-making meeting and you look around the table and everybody looks like you go, let's get somebody else at the table. Let's invite another voice in, because you just you're not going to have all the cultural cues. You're not going to have all the insight you need to be relevant and resonate with all the people you want to resonate with, period. It's not going to happen. Not just people who are going to sit there and look different. People are going to speak up. People are going to bring their experience to the table. And so when you ask them, does this look good? You don't get yeah, it looks good to me. No. You want people's insight from their experience. And you want to be able to look around the table and know that you have different voices at the table who will speak up and who see things you don't see. I've shared before that there's so much of our language that is culturally inappropriate. And there's a long story, there's a lot of these words, right? There's a whole, words that we shouldn't be using because they don't mean what we think they mean. Or they came out of a place of subjugation. So grandfathered in, low man on the totem pole, all the things. And it's been a challenge for me to find other words, other phrases to convey what I want to convey, because how I grew up, how I came up through my career was just steeped with all of these phrases that had a certain meaning, but came out of a different time and actually mean something different to the people that word impacted, that word insulted, or that phrase insulted, and they've just grown over time. It is a challenge for me. I mean, I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to convey my thoughts, because all of the words not all, obviously, but so many of the phrases that I use to convey a thought, get across the finish line. Well, what if you don't run? 1st and 10. What if you don't know football? Hits it out of the park. Is that a good thing? The things, right? All the things. And then also that means if you're in the room and something feels off, you got to say, hey, that feels off. I'm not sure why it feels off. Or maybe you know why it feels off. You can share it. But you need to say it. And if someone says that feels off, everybody listen. Everybody listen. They may not be right, but you got to listen and take a pause and get another opinion. Figure out why it feels off to that one person, right? And before you go out into the world with a huge campaign, with a huge, drop tooth, just like you look for typos and things, right? Just like you check the artwork before you print 10,000 t-shirts, you should say, does this feel weird to you? Does this look good to you? To other people. right? A simple gut check can save you millions. Oh my gosh. And having to go in the negative to get to zero, to go to the positive, right? So words are not just words. They're brand signals. They tell people what you stand for, whether you mean it to or not. And if your words don't match your actions, if your words don't match your values, don't expect people to believe you, because they will not believe you. We've seen it over and over again. The right words connect. The wrong words cost. And that cost shows up pretty quickly today. And it used to be, it'd take a while for people to have impact. It would take a while. I remember when I was at Sega, somebody approved an ad with a beautiful woman who was strategically, well, she was naked in the picture and strategically covered up with different components from the Sega product line. And the guy who approved this thought it was great. I wasn't so sure. I was like, I don't think this is a good idea. This, and this, and this. We spent over $300,000 in phone calls, 1-800 phone calls, on that one ad. That didn't cost that much to make or shoot. And then we had to walk it all back. And then we had to, make it up to people. And then, oh my gosh. So it was funny to the guys, but, for a gaming product at that time, and today too, young men may not be buying their own machines, their own gaming systems. Moms were doing it, and moms made phone calls. And then we had to deal with all these activist groups, and they weren't wrong. They weren't wrong. So you got to listen to the people around you, and even if it's funny to a certain group, take a listen and make sure that it's funny to everybody that impacts your business, right? So today, if we did that ad, it wouldn't have taken 3 months for it to reverberate. It would have been like in an instant. But at the time, that was a hard copy ad in a magazine in the gaming space. So it took a while to come back around. Today would take, maybe a millisecond before it would have gone. It would have just been taken down. So slow down, ask questions, invite the feedback. Do a Google search. What does this phrase mean? Where else is this phrase taken? Put it in ChatGPT. Whatever you need to do to make sure that you know what the words you say mean to other people. All right, that's all I have for now. I'm Lee Caraher, and this is Everything Speaks.